In the last 72 hours, something changed in deep space. The latest records from the James Webb Telescope reveal something no one had seen before in an interstellar object, a mathematical pattern that repeats every 8 hours with perfect precision. We're not talking about random fluctuations or cosmic interference. Calculations project that the next cycle will occur on November 1st, precisely when 3I, Atlas, realigns with the Sunday. This isn't noise or error. The data shows a sequence that appears to have intention, a structure, a design. And what's most disturbing is that no one in the scientific community can explain why an object that should be dead, frozen, and in absolute silence is emitting information with the regularity of an atomic clock. Are we facing an extraordinary mathematical coincidence, or the first form of interstellar communication recorded in human history? Before continuing, leave me in the comments what you think when you hear the name 3I Atlas. Does it sound familiar, unsettling, or simply curious? Because what's happening with this object goes far beyond what any telescope had detected before. For days now, the world's most important observatories have been comparing the radiation curves emitted by 3I Atlas. Teams in Chile, Hawaii, Australia, and South Africa are synchronizing their readings, cross-referencing data, verifying calibrations. And what they discovered defies all known explanation. The pulses follow an exact numerical order, a sequence 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, the same proportion that governs the natural geometry of the universe. The same pattern that appears in seashells, in the distribution of flower petals, in the spiral structure of galaxies, the famous Fibonacci sequence. But this time, it comes from an object that shouldn't be emitting anything. An interstellar visitor that crossed our solar system without warning, without leaving a trace of chemical activity, without gas jets, without a visible coma, just a dark and silent rock. Or so we thought. On October 23rd, when 3I Atlas reached its closest point to the Sun, the sensors of the ALMA radio telescope in the Atacama Desert detected something unexpected. 3 identical radiation pulses, separated by exact intervals of 480 minutes, each with the same spectral signature, the same relative intensity, the same duration. At first, technicians thought it was a calibration error. They restarted the systems, verified the antennas, checked the terrestrial interference filters. But when they pointed back at 3I Atlas, the pattern was still there, intact, persistent, impossible to ignore. The brightness increased with each repetition, and the exact frequency matches the projections of the Fibonacci model. For the scientists who analyzed the data in the following 48 hours, this cannot be coincidence. The probability that a natural phenomenon repeats this rhythm with this precision in an object traveling at more than 100,000 kilometers per hour through interstellar vacuum is nearly zero, 1 in several million. When the universe repeats the perfect sequence with such exactitude, someone or something might be behind it. The first internal reports began circulating among astronomers discreetly, encrypted emails, files shared on private servers, conversations on closed Slack channels. No one wanted to be the first to publicly declare what everyone was thinking. But on October 27th, a leaked internal report from NASA's Ames laboratory reached the hands of several independent researchers. The document, 17 pages long, bore a restricted classification stamp and contained something far more disturbing than the simple detection of a pattern. It suggests the pattern isn't just repeating, it's growing. Each cycle adds a new frequency variation, as if the object were learning, adapting, responding to environmental conditions. The pulses aren't static, they evolve. They become more complex. And they do so in a way that several analysts compare, with almost fearful caution, to the behavior of an artificial neural network in the training process. Imagine for a moment what that implies. An object that arrived from beyond the solar system, from a region of space so distant we don't even know which star it came from, is showing signs of information processing. It's not simply reflecting light. It's not emitting residual heat from sublimation. It's generating complex mathematical sequences that change over time. And it's doing so at a frequency that, coincidentally or not, matches one of nature's most fundamental patterns. The pattern that governs plant growth, the shape of hurricanes, the distribution of planetary orbits, a universal language, a code that any advanced civilization could recognize. What if 3I Atlas isn't orbiting randomly, but processing information about us? On October 28th, the European Southern Observatory issued a brief, almost procedural statement, confirming they are monitoring low-frequency anomalies in the recently cataloged interstellar object. They didn't mention the Fibonacci sequence. They didn't talk about repetitive patterns. They simply said the object presents unexpected characteristics and that additional observations will be conducted in the coming days. But those who closely follow these matters know how to read between the lines. When a space agency says something is unexpected, it generally means they have no explanation. And when they decide to conduct additional observations with limited resources and telescopes with months-long waiting lists, it's because something truly extraordinary is occurring. Meanwhile, in specialized astrophysics forums, in groups of amateur researchers with access to public telescope data, and in communities of radio amateurs monitoring space frequencies, theories began to multiply. Some propose that 3I, Atlas could be a fragment of an alien megastructure destroyed millions of years ago, a technological remnant wandering through interstellar space like the remains of a cosmic shipwreck. Others suggest the pattern could be an automatic beacon, designed to activate when it detects the presence of artificial electromagnetic radiation, that is, when approaching a technological civilization. Some think we're misinterpreting the data, that the pattern is simply the result of internal geological processes, though they can't explain how those processes would generate such a precise mathematical sequence. And then there are those who believe 3I, Atlas isn't a natural object at all, but a reconnaissance probe deliberately sent toward our solar system. Tell me in the comments which theory convinces you most so far. Do you think there could be a natural explanation we don't yet know? Or do you believe we're facing something intentionally designed? What makes this case different from other space anomalies is the convergence of multiple inexplicable factors. It's not just an object with a strange orbit, like Oumuamua in 2017. It's not just an unusual radiation pattern, like the fast radio bursts we detect from distant galaxies. It's the combination. 3I, Atlas, has a trajectory that doesn't match any known ejection model from nearby stellar systems. Its surface composition absorbs light differently from any cataloged asteroid or comet. It shows no cometary activity despite being near the Sunday. And now, it emits radiation pulses that follow one of the most elegant and universal mathematical sequences we know. Each of these elements separately would be interesting. Together, they're disturbing. Spectrographic data taken by the Subaru telescope in Hawaii shows that 3I, Atlas's surface has extremely low reflectivity, absorbing more than 90% of the visible light it receives. This makes it one of the darkest objects ever observed in the solar system. It's darker than coal, darker than asphalt, almost as dark as certain synthetic materials designed in laboratories for military and space applications. Some researchers speculate that this darkness could be intentional, a way to minimize detection, to go unnoticed during its journey through space. Others argue it's simply composed of complex organic materials that naturally absorb light. But then the question arises, why would such a dark object emit detectable radiation pulses? If it wanted to hide, wouldn't it be more logical to remain completely silent? On October 29th, while 3I, Atlas, continued its trajectory slowly moving away from the sun, the infrared sensors of the Spitzer Space Telescope, still in limited operation, detected a localized thermal increase in one of the object's regions. It wasn't general heating, like what a comet would experience when approaching the Sunday. It was a specific point, a region approximately 200 meters in diameter, that increased its temperature by nearly 30 Kelvin degrees during a 3-hour span, and then it cooled down again. This type of localized thermal variation has no precedent in inert objects. Generally, it's associated with internal activity, with processes that release energy in a controlled manner, with something that functions. Let's imagine for an instant that 3I, Atlas, is indeed a probe. Not a probe like the ones we send, with visible solar panels and antennas, but something much more sophisticated. Something designed to observe without being observed, to gather information without interfering. A probe that only activates when it detects certain conditions, when it identifies technology signals, when it confirms the presence of intelligent life. If that were the truth, what exactly would it be measuring? Our radio emissions? Our satellites? The chemical composition of our atmosphere? Or something deeper? Something we don't yet understand about ourselves? The Fibonacci sequence isn't just an elegant mathematical pattern. It's a language. It's the way the universe organizes complexity from simple rules. Each number in the sequence is the sum of the two previous ones. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21:34. This proportion appears in the arrangement of sunflower seeds, in the shape of nautilus shells, in the structure of spiral galaxy arms, in the proportions of the human body. If an extraterrestrial civilization wanted to send a message that any technological species could recognize, using Fibonacci would be an obvious choice. It's universal. It's inevitable. It's the signature of emergent complexity in the cosmos. And if that civilization wanted not just to send a message, but to demonstrate that the message is intentional, that it's not a product of chance, it would repeat the sequence with a precision that defies all natural explanation. Exactly what we're seeing. Updated orbital calculations indicate that at 3 hours and 17 minutes, Coordinated Universal Time, on November 1st, 3I, Atlas will reach a specific position in its trajectory. A position where it will be aligned with the Sun, Earth, and several of our planet's most powerful observatories. If the object maintains the same emission pattern it has shown during recent days, that moment will mark the 8th complete cycle of pulses since intensive observation began. And the number 8 in the Fibonacci sequence has special significance. It's the point where the pattern becomes undeniable, where repetition confirms intention. If at that moment 3I, Atlas emits an even more complex signal, a variation that adds additional information, we'll be facing something that will forever change our understanding of the universe. The teams are ready, the radio telescopes are pointed, the detection algorithms are calibrated to maximum sensitivity, but several scientists admit, in private conversations, that they don't know what to expect. Some fear the signal will be too complex to interpret in real time. Others hope it will be simple enough to confirm it is, indeed, an attempt at communication. And there are those who wonder if we should respond, because there lies the real dilemma. If 3I, Atlas is sending a signal, and we detect it, should we answer? Should we send our own response sequence, confirming we received the message, that we understand the pattern? Or should we simply observe in silence, gathering information without revealing our capacity to interpret extraterrestrial signals? These questions aren't trivial. We've spent decades searching for signals of intelligent life in the cosmos, but now that we possibly have one in front of us, there's no clear protocol on how to proceed. Humanity has never faced this real situation, only theoretical. In 1974, we sent the Arecibo message toward the globular cluster M13, 25,000 light-years away. It was a symbolic gesture, a demonstration of our technological capability more than a serious attempt at communication. We knew any response would take 50,000 years to arrive. But 3I, Atlas is here, now, in our solar system. If we respond, the signal could reach it in minutes. And if it does, what information would we be revealing about ourselves? Our exact location, if they don't already know it, our technology, our level of development, our intentions? Write in the comments if you think we should respond or remain silent. It's a question that defines our philosophy as a species. There's something else few are discussing publicly, but that circulates in the hallways of research centers. If 3I, Atlas, is a probe, it didn't arrive here by chance. Its trajectory, though hyperbolic and clearly of interstellar origin, passed remarkably close to our planet. Too close to be just a product of cosmic chance. The probabilities of an interstellar object passing so close to a specific planetary system are astronomically low. The space between stars is vast, almost incomprehensibly empty. For something to cross our neighborhood with that precision, it either had extraordinary luck or it was directed. And if it was directed, that implies whoever sent it knows our location and knows where we are, knows we're here. This possibility raises scenarios ranging from fascinating to unsettling. If an advanced civilization is monitoring our solar system, since when has it been doing so? Have we been observed for decades, centuries, millennia? Were our first radio transmissions in the 20th century detected by someone, and 3I, Atlas, is their response? Or have they been here since before, waiting for us to reach a technological level sufficient to notice their presence? These questions don't have easy answers. But the simple fact that they're now legitimate questions based on real data and not pure speculation marks a fundamental change in how we must think about our place in the universe. Astrophysicist Sarah Seeger, from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, who has dedicated her career to searching for habitable planets and biosignatures in exoplanetary atmospheres, stated in a recent interview that if we're detecting complex mathematical patterns in interstellar objects, We must treat them with the same scientific rigor as any other observation, without prejudice, but without naivety. It's a balanced stance in a debate that can easily polarize between extreme skepticism and unfounded speculation. What we need is precisely that: rigor, data, repeatable observations, independent analyses, not hasty conclusions, but also not reflexive denial of the extraordinary. The James Webb Telescope, the most powerful instrument ever deployed in space, capable of observing the first galaxies formed after the Big Bang, capable of analyzing the chemical composition of planetary atmospheres hundreds of light years away, is now pointing at 3I, ATLS. Its infrared sensors, designed to penetrate cosmic dust and reveal hidden structures, are scanning every square centimeter of the object, searching for temperature patterns, signs of anomalous composition, any clue about its true nature. If there's something artificial in that object, if there are structures that shouldn't be there, the Webb will find it, and if it finds it, everything changes. But even if we don't find visual evidence of technology, even if 3I, Atlas, turns out to be just a rock with unusual properties, the fact that it's emitting complex mathematical signals is already enough to rethink our assumptions. Because if a natural object can generate Fibonacci sequences with clock-like precision, then the universe is even more mysterious and complex than we thought. And if it's not natural, then we're not alone. Both conclusions are profound. Both force us to rethink everything. In the coming hours, as 3I, Atlas continues its silent journey moving away from the sun, thousands of scientists around the world will be watching their screens, analyzing radiation graphs, comparing mathematical models, waiting for the next pulse, waiting for confirmation, waiting for answers, or perhaps waiting for new questions. Because in science, the best questions are often more valuable than easy answers. And 3I, Atlas, is giving us the best question we've had in decades. Are we finally detecting direct evidence of intelligence beyond Earth? The universe has always spoken through patterns. Stars are born and die following precise physical laws. Galaxies dance in perfect gravitational choreographies. Planets orbit with mathematical regularity. But never before had we seen a pattern that seemed to have intention. Never before had an object from deep space spoken to us in a language we can recognize. 3I, Atlas doesn't just move, doesn't just reflect light, doesn't just traverse the void like countless space rocks have done before. Now it seems to respond with rhythm, with intention, with code. And it does so precisely when we're watching. Precisely when we have the technology to detect it. Precisely when we're ready to understand. November 1st could be just another day on the human calendar. Or it could mark the moment when we stop observing the cosmos as passive spectators, and the cosmos begins to observe us back. The moment when we confirm there are eyes, or sensors, or forms of consciousness we don't yet understand, looking toward Earth from the immensity of space. The moment when we stop being alone in the universe, at least in our perception, because maybe we were never alone. Maybe we just needed to learn to listen. And now, finally, we're listening. Subscribe to the channel to follow every update about 3I, Atlas in real time. Leave in the comments what you think about all this. Are we seeing a simple, extraordinary, but natural mathematical coincidence, or a signal sent directly toward Earth with a purpose we don't yet understand? Do you believe NASA and other space agencies are being completely transparent with the information they have, or do you think there's classified data the public isn't seeing? And the most important question, if this turns out to be real first contact, are we prepared as a civilization for what comes next? This isn't the end of the story. It's barely the beginning, and you're here, following every development, every discovery, every clue that brings us closer to a truth that could redefine everything we thought about life, intelligence, and our place in the cosmos. Stay tuned, because something is happening up there, and whatever it is, we can no longer ignore it. November 3rd, that date is marked in red on the calendars of thousands of astronomers around the world. NASA has confirmed that on that day, it will publish something that has been generating internal debates, closed meetings, and contradictory versions among the teams at the Goddard Institute for weeks. It's not about a distant galaxy or a potentially habitable exoplanet. It's something much closer, much stranger, and, according to some researchers, completely impossible. The James Webb Space Telescope, the most advanced instrument ever built to observe the cosmos, has captured a series of images that defy all known logic. In each of them appears the same object, 3I Atlas, that interstellar visitor that entered our solar system months ago and has been surprising the scientific community ever since. But there's a problem that no one at NASA wants to publicly admit yet. The images show 3I, Atlas, in places where it shouldn't be. We're not talking about a margin of error in orbital calculations or a small deviation in its trajectory. We're talking about simultaneous observations in regions of space separated by millions of kilometers, as if the same object could exist at multiple points in the universe at the same time. Before continuing, I want you to leave me something in the comments. Write the first word that comes to mind when you hear the name 3I Atlas. Just that. One word. Because what I'm about to tell you in the next few minutes could completely change your perception of what you think you know about that object. The first internal reports began circulating at the end of September. Engineers from the James Webb Spectral Analysis Program noticed something strange during a routine data review. The MIRI spectrometer team had captured an image of 3I Atlas on September 18 at 3:42 UTC. Nothing out of the ordinary up to that point. But when they cross-referenced that information with the NIRC PAM system records, they discovered that barely 7 hours later, the same object had been photographed in a completely different region of observable space. The position difference wasn't hundreds of thousands of kilometers, it was more than 4 million, a distance that no comet, asteroid, or known celestial body could travel in that time span, not even if it were accelerating at speeds approaching the physically impossible. At first, the technicians assumed it was an error in instrument calibration. The James Webb is an extraordinarily precise machine, but even the most advanced systems can suffer failures. They checked the sensors, recalibrated the coordinates, adjusted the image processing algorithms. But when they analyzed the data again, the result was identical. 3I Atlas kept appearing in two different places, with the same thermal signature, the same spectral reflectance pattern, and the same apparent structure. And then came the third image, and then the fourth, and finally the fifth. 5 different captures, 5 different locations, all recorded in a period of barely 72 hours. And in all of them, the same object shining with an intensity that doesn't match any predictive model of cometary behavior. The preliminary data that was leaked unofficially by personnel from the Goddard Institute shows something even more disturbing. The differences between each appearance aren't random. There's an underlying geometric pattern. If you draw lines connecting each point where 3I Atlas was detected, the resulting figure forms a kind of irregular pentagon, with the sun located almost exactly at its center. A configuration that, according to several astrophysicists consulted unofficially, has no known natural explanation. Think about this for a second. The universe operates under specific laws. Gravity dictates how celestial bodies move. The speed of light imposes absolute limits on how fast information, matter, or energy can travel. These rules aren't suggestions, they're the foundations upon which all modern physics is built. And yet, here we have an object that seems to be violating those rules systematically and repeatedly. How? Why? And what does that mean for everything we think we know about reality? The images captured by the MIRI spectrometer are particularly unsettling. This instrument is designed to observe in the mid-infrared spectrum, detecting the heat emitted by objects in space. When you analyze a typical comet with MIRI, what you see is a predictable thermal signature, the icy nucleus reflecting sunlight, a tail of sublimated gases, temperature variations consistent with distance from the sundial. But 3I Atlas doesn't show that behavior. Its thermal signature is extraordinarily uniform, almost artificial in its consistency. There are no significant thermal variations between its core and its edges. There's no clear evidence of gaseous sublimation. And strangest of all, its apparent temperature doesn't vary according to its distance from the sun, something that completely contradicts the basic principles of space thermodynamics. The captures from the NIRC system reveal even more puzzling details. NIRCam operates in the near-infrared, capturing high-resolution images that allow studying the physical structure of objects. In the photographs of 3I Atlas, you can distinguish what some analysts describe as geometric patterns on its surface. They're not craters or typical rock formations. They're straight lines, defined angles, symmetries that natural erosion doesn't produce. An optical engineer from the project, who asked to remain anonymous, stated in a specialized forum that the images show something that doesn't fit with any known natural body. According to his analysis, the light reflectance on 3I Atlas's surface suggests the presence of materials with unusual optical properties, possibly metallic alloys or highly organized crystalline compounds. Tell me in the comments, Do you think we're facing a natural phenomenon that we simply don't understand yet? Or do you think there's something more at play? Right, natural or artificial, according to what your instinct tells you. NASA's official reaction has been, at best, cautious, at worst, deliberately evasive. During the first 2 weeks after the anomalies were detected internally, there was no public communication about the subject. Zero mentions in press conferences, zero updates on the official James Webb channels, absolute silence. It wasn't until October 10 when the agency issued a brief, almost minimalist statement, announcing that on November 3, they would publish new observations of interstellar objects. Not a single word about the multiple locations. Not a mention of the thermal anomalies. Not the slightest acknowledgement that something extraordinary is happening. That silence didn't go unnoticed. Several independent astronomers began asking uncomfortable questions on social media and specialized forums. Why so much time between capturing the images and their publication? Why hasn't preliminary information been shared with the international scientific community, as is usual in this type of discovery? And why were some researchers who worked on the initial analysis abruptly reassigned to other projects? An astronomer from the European Observatory, in an unofficial interview, suggested there might be political pressures involved. When something challenges the established paradigm so radically, he said, institutions tend to move with extreme caution. Not because they're deliberately hiding information, but because they don't know how to communicate something they themselves don't fully understand. But there are others who don't share that benevolent view. There are those who believe NASA knows exactly what it's seeing, and that the delay in publishing the images is due to a careful filtering and editing process. Sources close to the project claim that the original images contain spectral data in certain bands that were deliberately removed before the planned publication. What did those bands show? Nobody knows for certain, but what is known is that every time technicians try to recalibrate the images or adjust the exposure to obtain greater detail, 3I Atlas appears with more clarity, more definition, and, according to some reports, with what appear to be internal structures visible at certain wavelengths. Imagine for a moment that you're part of the team analyzing these images. You spent years of your life studying physics, astrophysics, celestial mechanics. You trust mathematics. You trust the instruments. And suddenly you find yourself facing data that shouldn't exist. Data that suggests something in the universe doesn't work the way you thought. What do? Do you publicly admit you have no explanation? Or do you wait, investigate, look for some theory that can reconcile what you're seeing with everything you know? There are several theories attempting to explain the phenomenon of 3I Atlas's multiple locations. Some are more conservative, based on known physics. Others venture into speculative territories, but no less fascinating for that. The first hypothesis, and perhaps the most reassuring for the traditional scientific community, is that of systemic instrumental error. This theory suggests that the James Webb might be experiencing a type of interference that generates ghost images. Maybe high-energy cosmic radiation is affecting the sensors. Maybe there's a problem with the segmented mirrors that make up the telescope, creating internal reflections that are interpreted as separate objects. The problem with this explanation is that the technical teams have already ruled out most of these possibilities. The cross-verification systems, designed specifically to detect instrumental errors, show no anomalies. And more importantly, the images were captured by two completely different systems, MIRI and NIRCam, that operate with different technologies, process data independently, and don't share the same potential failure points. The second hypothesis is that of an unknown optical phenomenon. Some physicists have suggested that 3I Atlas might be interacting with the interstellar medium in a way that produces gravitational lensing or extreme refraction effects. In other words, we wouldn't be seeing the real object, but multiple distorted images of the same object, created by the curvature of space-time or by interactions with interstellar magnetic fields. This theory is more sophisticated, but also has problems. For such pronounced gravitational lensing effects to occur, you would need the presence of enormous masses between the observer and the observed object. Masses on the order of stars or even black holes. And there's no evidence of any massive structure in the regions where 3I Atlas has been detected. And then there's the third hypothesis, the most unsettling one, the one nobody wants to mention in official conferences, but that's discussed privately, in hallway conversations, in emails without official responses. The hypothesis of artificial replication. This theory proposes that 3I Atlas is not a natural object, that it's not a comet, nor an asteroid, nor any type of space geological formation, but rather that it is, or contains, some type of technology capable of projecting, replicating, or manifesting itself at multiple points in space simultaneously. It sounds like science fiction, I know, but consider the data. An object that appears in 5 different locations with the same spectral signature, geometric patterns on its surface, a uniform temperature that doesn't respond to solar radiation, a trajectory that already defied initial predictions when it entered the solar system. Some researchers have compared the phenomenon to the concept of quantum echoes at macroscopic scale. In quantum mechanics, particles can exhibit superposition, existing in multiple states simultaneously until they're observed. What if 3I Atlas is operating under similar principles but at a completely different scale? What if what we're seeing isn't an error or an optical illusion, but the true nature of an object that functions according to rules we don't yet understand? Others go further. They suggest that the multiple appearances could be holographic projections generated by technology of unknown origin. That 3I Atlas could be a probe, an observer, a device designed to study our solar system from multiple angles simultaneously. A kind of cosmic surveillance network operated by an intelligence that masters physical principles that we're barely beginning to imagine. What if the telescope isn't photographing the real object, but its projections on different dimensional layers of space? What if what we call 3I Atlas is just the 3-dimensional shadow of something that exists in more dimensions than we can perceive? Leave me in the comments which theory seems most convincing to you. Right, quantum echo, hologram, or multidimensional? I want to know what your intuition tells you when you analyze all this data. Now comes the part that really unsettles me. The part that makes all this go from being a fascinating scientific anomaly to something potentially concerning. According to multiple sources who worked on the initial image processing, there was something else in the original data, something we won't see in the November 3 publication because it was deliberately removed from the final versions. In the complete spectral analysis of 3I Atlas, there's a specific band of wavelengths that was cataloged as corrupted data and excluded from the official report. This band corresponds to far infrared frequencies, a range normally used to detect complex organic molecules and chemical signatures associated with biological processes. The technicians who initially identified this anomaly reported that, at those specific wavelengths, 3I Atlas emits an extremely regular radiation pattern. It's not the type of chaotic and random emission you'd expect from a natural object. It's structured, repetitive, with precise intervals that suggest some type of artificial periodicity. When this data was elevated to higher review levels, the response was immediate. Reclassify that information as instrumental noise and remove it from all public reports. No additional analysis was performed. No independent verification was requested. It was simply erased. Why? The official answer is that there wasn't enough confidence in the quality of that data to include it in serious scientific publications. But some of the researchers involved aren't convinced. One of them, in a private conversation that was later shared on specialized forums, said something that stuck with me. If they really thought it was just corrupted data, they would have tried to repeat the observation to rule out the error. Instead, they ordered that no one else point the telescope toward that specific region of the spectrum when observing 3I Atlas. Think about the implications of that. If there's something in those frequencies they don't want studied further, what could it be? What type of signal could be so concerning that the institutional response is simply to ignore it? And there's another detail that adds more mystery to all this. Every time engineers adjusted the exposure of the images to improve resolution, trying to capture more details of 3I Atlas's surface, the object appeared brighter in subsequent observations. Not a little brighter, significantly brighter, as if it were responding to being observed, as if the action of photographing it activated some type of luminous reaction. This completely contradicts the expected behavior of any passive object in space. Comets don't respond to being observed. Asteroids don't increase their brightness because a telescope is photographing them. But 3I Atlas seems to do so. And every time it happens, the infrared radiation levels in those corrupted frequencies also increase, following the same regular and structured pattern. There's a concept in science called paradigmatic anomaly. It's when a discovery challenges existing theories so fundamentally that the scientific community doesn't know how to incorporate it into established knowledge. Historically, these anomalies are ignored, dismissed, or reinterpreted until eventually enough evidence accumulates to force a paradigm shift. Einstein's theory of relativity was a paradigmatic anomaly. Quantum mechanics was another. Both were initially resisted because they required scientists to abandon fundamental assumptions about how reality works. Is 3I Atlas another paradigmatic anomaly? Are we witnessing something that will require us to rewrite the textbooks of physics, astronomy, perhaps even biology, if the implications are deep enough? Or maybe, just maybe, we're seeing evidence that we're not alone, that there are intelligences in the universe operating at scales and with technologies we can barely begin to understand, and that one of those intelligences has decided, for reasons only it knows, to visit our small corner of the cosmos. I know this may sound overwhelming. I know part of you might want to dismiss all this as exaggerated speculation, and I understand that reaction. It's much more comfortable to think that the universe is a predictable, understandable place where the laws of physics work exactly as we were taught in school. But the history of science has taught us again and again that the universe is much stranger, much more complex, and much more surprising than we ever imagined. Every time we build a more powerful instrument, we discover things we previously thought impossible. The James Webb was designed precisely for that, to see beyond what we'd never seen, to capture images from the most remote corners of the cosmos, to find answers to questions we didn't even know we should be asking. And now, perhaps, it has found something nobody was prepared to see. It's not the first time an interstellar object has generated controversy. Let's remember Oumuamua, the first confirmed interstellar visitor that crossed our solar system in 2017. Its elongated shape, its unexplained acceleration as it moved away from the sun, its extremely reflective surface. Everything about Oumuamua defied expectations. Even respected astrophysicists like Avi Loeb from Harvard publicly suggested it could be an artificial object, a solar sail of extraterrestrial origin. The scientific community generally rejected that interpretation, favoring natural explanations even though they required some creative assumptions about the object's composition and behavior. But the questions were never really answered. Oumuamua left our solar system as mysteriously as it had arrived, and with it went all opportunities to study it further. 3I Atlas is different. It's still here. We can still observe it. And with the James Webb, we have the capability to analyze it with unprecedented precision, which makes the decisions about what to observe, what to publish, and what information to share even more crucial. If there's something truly extraordinary about the nature of this object, this could be our only opportunity to document it before it too disappears into the vastness of interstellar space. Days remain. Only days until November 3rd, until the images are finally published and the world can see what the James Webb has captured. But based on everything I've told you, on the leaks, on the testimonies of researchers, on the patterns emerging from the available data, I believe there's something important you need to understand. What we're going to see on November 3rd won't be the complete story. It will be an edited, filtered version, presented in a way that minimizes impact and reduces uncomfortable questions. We'll see impressive images, no doubt. We'll hear technical explanations about chemical composition, orbital trajectories, comparisons with other known objects. Everything will sound professional, scientific, reassuring. But between the lines, in the data that won't be discussed, in the questions that journalists won't know to ask because they don't have access to the complete information, will be the true story of 3I Atlas. And that story is of an object that defies our categories, that violates our expectations, and that suggests possibilities that most people aren't yet ready to seriously consider. Write 3NOV in the comments if you're going to be watching for the publication. I want to know how many of you will be analyzing every detail of those images with me, looking for what's not being said, questioning the official explanations. This is the reality we live in now. A reality where humanity's most advanced instruments are detecting phenomena that don't fit our models of understanding, where objects from deep space behave in ways that seem to defy the fundamental laws of physics, where the line between the natural and the artificial, between the explicable and the inexplicable, becomes increasingly blurred. 3I Atlas isn't just an interstellar comet. It's a question, an enormous, unsettling, impossible to ignore question. And the answer, whatever it may be, is going to change something in us, in how we see the universe, in how we see ourselves within that universe. Maybe the November 3rd images will give us clarity. Maybe finally there will be a simple, natural explanation for all this. Maybe the experts will find a way to reconcile the observations with known physics, and we can all breathe relieved and move on. Or maybe, just maybe, those images will be the beginning of something much bigger. The first step in a revelation that will take years, even decades, to fully develop. The first solid evidence that the universe is even stranger than the most audacious visionaries dared to imagine. There's something poetic about all this, don't you think? We've spent centuries looking at the stars, wondering if we're alone, imagining what first contact with something truly alien to our experience would be like. And perhaps that moment won't come with spaceships descending over cities or with encrypted radio messages. Perhaps it will arrive more subtly, more confusingly, more ambiguously. A series of impossible images, an object that shouldn't exist behaving in ways that shouldn't be possible. And perhaps the most important question isn't, what is 3I, ATLS, but are we ready to know the answer? Because whatever it is, whatever the truth behind these anomalies may be, one thing is certain: on November 3rd, something will change. Maybe only in the way a few scientists understand a specific corner of astrophysics, or maybe in the way all of humanity understands its place in the cosmos. The coming days will tell us. Or not. Because maybe the true nature of 3I Atlas will remain a mystery long after the images are published. Maybe some mysteries are designed to remain unsolved, at least for now, at least until we're truly ready for the answers. But we'll be watching, analyzing, questioning, because that's what those of us who refuse to accept simple explanations do when the data suggests something deeper. 3I Atlas is out there, shining in multiple places at once, emitting signals that shouldn't exist, challenging us to expand our understanding or to admit that there are things in the universe we're simply not equipped to understand yet. Subscribe to the channel if you want to follow this story to the end. Leave me in the comments your definitive theory about what 3I Atlas really is. And above all, keep your eyes open on November 3rd, because whatever NASA shows us, whatever those images reveal or hide, it's going to be the beginning of conversations that will probably continue for a long, long time. Maybe we're witnessing history, or maybe we're just seeing the reflection of our desire for the universe to be more mysterious than it really is. But there's only one way to find out. Tell me what you think. Comment Atlas if you believe there's something NASA isn't telling us. And get ready for November 3rd. Because something tells me that on that day, everything is going to change. Or maybe it already changed, and we simply haven't realized it yet. Somewhere in deep space, millions of kilometers from Earth, something is happening. The sensors of the MAVEN satellite, in orbit around Mars, have detected something that has put the entire international scientific community on maximum alert: an electromagnetic signal. But not just any signal. It's a transmission identical, pulse by pulse, frequency by frequency, to the one emitted just days ago by the interstellar object known as 3I Atlas. The coincidence is mathematically impossible. The intensity, the pattern, the structure of the message, everything matches 100%. And the most unsettling thing about all this is that this signal is not floating randomly through the cosmos. No, it's traveling in a straight line, with millimetric precision, directly toward Mars. The latest orbital calculations indicate that on November 5th, this transmission will impact the Martian atmosphere. Astronomers from NASA, the European Space Agency, and private observatories around the world are baffled. No one knows exactly where it's coming from. No one can explain how a signal can replicate itself with such perfection. But all tracking models, all calculated trajectories, all origin analyses point to the same place: 3I Atlas, the object that arrived from outside the solar system, the silent visitor that now seems to be sending messages. Before continuing with this information, let me know in the comments what you think when you hear that an identical signal is being emitted toward another planet. Astronomical coincidence? A natural phenomenon we don't yet understand? Or something much more deliberate? Write the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the name 3I Atlas directed toward Mars. During the last few days, something changed in the behavior of 3I Atlas. It wasn't gradual, it wasn't subtle, it was drastic. The object's electromagnetic activity increased exponentially, surpassing all previous records that observatories had captured since its discovery. First came the pulses synchronized with solar radiation, those strange patterns that seemed to respond almost as if they were calibrating themselves every time a burst of solar wind reached its surface. Then came the anomalies detected by NASA, those energy readings that didn't match any known natural object, neither comets, nor asteroids, nor fragments of ancient planetesimals. And now, this. A perfect echo. an exact replica of its own signal traveling through the vacuum of space toward the red planet at a speed that defies any natural explanation. Electromagnetic waves don't behave this way on their own. They don't replicate complex structures. They don't direct themselves toward specific planetary targets without an intelligent source behind them. What makes all this even more disturbing is that Mars is not just any planet in terms of electromagnetic activity. In the past, missions like Mars Express and the MAVEN orbiter had detected unusual patterns of magnetic resonance in the Martian ionosphere, phenomena that scientists attributed to interactions between the solar wind and the remnants of the planet's ancient magnetic field. But this time is different. This time, the approaching signal doesn't come from the Sunday. It comes from an interstellar object, and it arrives with a code that, according to preliminary analyses, appears to have a deliberate structure. It's not cosmic noise. It's not background radiation. It's organized information. The European Space Agency's radio astronomy team was the first to confirm it. After weeks of analysis, of cross-comparisons between different radio telescopes distributed across the planet, the conclusion was unanimous. The frequency detected in the signal heading toward Mars is identical to the 13I Atlas emitted on November 1st. We're not talking about vague similarities or approximations. We're talking about an absolute coincidence. Every energy peak, every valley in the wave, every frequency modulation, everything fits with a precision that can only be described as impossible from the standpoint of natural phenomena. The signal has a particular structure, a pulse composed of 3 consecutive electromagnetic bursts, separated by an exact interval of 88 seconds between each one. 88 seconds, not 87, not 89. Exactly 88. This temporal precision doesn't exist in nature. Pulsars, those cosmic beacons that emit radiation regularly, have variations. Fast radio bursts, those mysterious outbursts that arrive from distant galaxies, are irregular. But this is different. This is a mathematical sequence. It's the same structure that NASA detected in the original message. That message they still haven't managed to decipher. That data set that remains classified on the Jet Propulsion Laboratory servers, and that only a handful of high-level researchers have been able to review. No known natural phenomenon, no star, no black hole, no stellar remnant can repeat such a precise sequence at this scale. Comets don't emit structured radio signals. Asteroids don't generate electromagnetic pulses with programmed intervals. And interstellar objects, until now, had only been frozen rocks or metallic fragments drifting aimlessly. But 3I Atlas doesn't behave like any of them. What if 3I Atlas isn't sending a message to Earth but to Mars? What if all this time we were looking in the wrong direction? What if the true recipient of the message was never us? But here's where the story gets even stranger. Because Mars isn't simply receiving the signal passively, it's responding. The ultraviolet radiation sensors aboard the ExoMars orbiter, a joint mission between the European Space Agency and Roscosmos, registered something completely anomalous just 72 hours ago. Unusual alterations in the Martian ionosphere, specifically in the upper layers of the planet's atmosphere, right in the region where charged particles from the solar wind interact with the remnants of the ancient magnetic field. But these alterations didn't coincide with any known solar pattern. There were no solar storms in progress. There were no coronal mass ejections directed toward Mars. However, the red planet's ionosphere was vibrating. And the most disconcerting thing of all is that, according to preliminary data, the planet appears to be reflecting part of the electromagnetic pulse, as if its atmosphere were acting as a mirror, bouncing the signal back toward its source of origin. Some researchers from the European Space Operations Center maintain that this reaction cannot be explained without assuming that there exists some type of bidirectional communication, that it's not just a signal arriving, but a signal being processed and responded to. Other scientists, more cautious, prefer to speak of a plasma resonance phenomenon, a natural interaction between electromagnetic waves and the ionosphere's plasma that, under very specific conditions, could generate that rebound effect. But even they admit they've never seen anything like this before. And then there's the third hypothesis, the one no one dares mention publicly at official conferences, but that circulates in specialized forums and private research groups. The possibility that 3I Atlas is using Mars as a bounce point to amplify its reach, as if the red planet weren't the final destination of the message, but a relay station, an intermediate node in a much larger communication network, a natural antenna that allows the signal to travel farther, arrive faster, reach something beyond our solar system. What if Mars isn't the destination, but the intermediary? What if what we're witnessing isn't a message directed at a planet, but the first step of a transmission chain connecting points in deep space that we haven't yet identified? But beyond the theories, beyond the speculations, there is a concrete and undeniable fact. On November 5th, something is going to happen. The orbital calculations performed by the celestial mechanics team at the European Southern Observatory indicate that the signal will reach the northern hemisphere of Mars exactly at 19 hours, 26 minutes, coordinated universal time. It's not an estimation. It's not a probability window. It's a precise mathematical prediction based on the propagation speed of the electromagnetic wave, the distance between 3i ATLAS and Mars, and the object's current trajectory. NASA's radio telescopes, specifically the Deep Space Network with its 3 stations distributed in California, Spain, and Australia, are already aligned to record the interaction in real time. The European Space Agency has also reconfigured its deep space antennas to capture every detail of the event, and they're not the only ones. Private observatories, universities, astrophysics institutes around the world are preparing to observe. Because if the pulse maintains the same sequence, if those 3 bursts with 88-second intervals are replicated upon entering contact with the Martian atmosphere, then there will be no room for doubt. It will be definitive confirmation that 3i Atlas emits directed messages, messages with specific destinations, messages that are not random. And if that's true, if we're really facing intentional communication, then Mars would become the first planet in the solar system to receive, in a verifiable and documented manner, a signal of unknown origin. It wouldn't be a rumor. It wouldn't be ambiguous data. It would be an event recorded by multiple instruments, analyzed by dozens of independent scientific teams, impossible to deny. Now I ask you, what do you think will happen when that signal touches Mars' atmosphere? Leave me your theory in the comments. Will it simply be an electromagnetic interaction without consequences, a natural phenomenon we don't yet fully understand? Or will it be something more? A response? An activation? Write the word Atlas if you want me to continue investigating every detail of this event. But while we wait for that moment to arrive, while the telescopes align and scientists review their equations over and over again, there's something we cannot ignore. Something that has been present from the beginning, but that now takes on a completely new meaning. 3i Atlas is not a common object. Since its discovery several weeks ago, its behavior has defied all expectations. First was its trajectory. Gravitational models indicated it should have moved away from the sun, following a classic hyperbola, the natural curve that all interstellar objects follow when passing near a star. But it didn't. It accelerated. It slightly changed its course, enough for astronomers to notice the anomaly, but not so much that it was immediately obvious. Then there were its physical characteristics. Infrared telescopes showed that its surface didn't reflect light in the expected manner. It didn't have the diffuse glow of a comet covered in ice. It didn't show the tail of gas and dust that forms when an icy object approaches the sunday. Its albedo, its ability to reflect light, was strangely low, almost as if it were covered in an absorbent material, something that didn't fit with the composition of known comets. And now, these signals, these electromagnetic pulses that shouldn't exist, that defy everything we know about how natural objects behave in space. Some astronomers have begun to speak privately about the possibility that 3i Atlas isn't a comet at all, that its shape, its movement, its electromagnetic activity are indications of something constructed, not formed by natural processes, but designed, manufactured, sent. It's a hypothesis that sounds like science fiction, I know. But when all natural data fails, when no conventional explanation manages to account for what's observed, then you have to consider the improbable. Not as a certainty, but as a possibility that deserves to be investigated. Let's remember that it wouldn't be the first time an interstellar object generates this type of speculation. In 2017, when Oumuamua traversed our solar system, scientists were perplexed by its elongated shape, its unexplained acceleration, its lack of cometary emissions. Astronomer Avi Loeb from Harvard University publicly proposed that Oumuamua could have been a solar sail, an artificial structure designed to travel between the stars propelled by radiation pressure. The scientific community criticized him harshly. They called him sensationalist, but no one could refute his calculations. And now, years later, we have 3i ATLAS. An object that not only has anomalies in its movement, but also emits signals, structured signals, signals that seem to have a purpose. Is it possible that both objects are related? Is it possible that they're part of the same mission, the same project, the same interstellar exploration network? We don't know, not yet, but on November 5th we could start to have answers. Because if the signal reaches Mars and something happens, anything that can be measured, documented, analyzed, then we'll no longer be talking about coincidences. We'll be talking about evidence, and evidence changes everything. It forces us to rewrite the models. It forces us to reconsider the assumptions. It forces us to accept that perhaps, just perhaps, we're not as alone as we thought. That the universe is not an empty desert devoid of life and intelligence, but a place where other beings, other civilizations, other forms of consciousness are also exploring, communicating, leaving traces. And if that's true, if we're really witnessing the first signs of interstellar communication, then the question is no longer whether we're alone. The question is, what are they trying to tell us? What information does that message contain that NASA still can't decipher? Is it a warning? Is it an invitation? Is it simply a cosmic hello, a signal that someone else is out there looking at the stars like us? Or is it something much more complex, something our minds aren't yet prepared to understand? There's a theory, unofficial, that circulates among some researchers who prefer to remain anonymous. A theory that suggests 3I, Atlas, could be an autonomous probe, an intelligent device designed to explore stellar systems, gather information, and transmit it back to its point of origin. Under this scenario, the signals we're detecting wouldn't be messages directed at us or at Mars, but data reports. Information being sent through space, using planets as transmission nodes, taking advantage of their atmospheres and residual magnetic fields to amplify electromagnetic waves. Mars, with its ionosphere and its remnants of ancient magnetism, would be a perfect repeater, a natural amplifier that allows the signal to travel much farther than it could on its own. If this theory is correct, then what we're observing is not an isolated event. It's part of an infrastructure, of an interstellar communication network that already existed long before we developed the ability to detect it. A network that connects stars, planets, objects in transit, an invisible, silent network that has been functioning for thousands, perhaps millions of years, without anyone on Earth knowing of its existence. Tell me in the comments which theory convinces you most. Do you believe 3I, Atlas, is a natural object with properties we don't yet understand? Or do you believe we're facing something designed, something artificial, something sent with a specific purpose? And what if NASA already knows? What if they already have the answers, but decided not to share them because they still don't know how to handle the implications? Because that's also possible. It wouldn't be the first time a space agency withholds information for reasons of national security, scientific protocol, or simply because they don't know how to communicate a discovery of this magnitude without causing panic or misinterpretations. NASA has specific protocols for this type of situation. The SETI protocol, the set of international directives for handling signals of possible extraterrestrial origin, establishes that any detection must be independently verified by multiple institutions before being publicly announced. And that takes time, weeks, months, even years. Meanwhile, the general public goes on with their lives without knowing that something transcendental could be happening in silence. But rumors leak. They always leak. And in this case, the leaks have been consistent. Anonymous sources within NASA, internal emails that appeared on specialized forums, private conversations between astronomers that were later shared. Everything points to there being more information than is being officially shared. That the analyses of 3I, Atlas's original message, revealed something they're not yet ready to disclose. That the simulations of what could occur on November 5th have generated results so unexpected that they prefer to wait for concrete evidence before making public statements. And that brings us back to the beginning, to November 5th, to the exact moment when the signal will touch the Martian atmosphere. Because that event, that interaction, could be the missing piece of the puzzle, the definitive confirmation that something extraordinary is happening. Or, conversely, it could be proof that all this is nothing more than a series of cosmic coincidences, natural phenomena misinterpreted, patterns that our minds, anxious to find meaning, have constructed where there is none. But even if it's that, even if it turns out that 3I, ATLAS, is simply a strange comet with unusual properties, the mere fact that we've asked ourselves these questions, that we've considered these possibilities, is already significant, because it demonstrates that we're ready, that as a civilization, as a species, we're prepared to face the possibility that we're not alone, that there's something beyond our small blue planet, that the universe is much more complex, much more mysterious, and much fuller of life than we ever imagined. November 5th could become one of the most important dates in the history of space exploration, not for what we know, but for what we might discover. For the first time, a signal coming from deep space, from an object that doesn't belong to our solar system, could directly connect with a neighboring planet. For the first time, we would have documented, verifiable, reproducible evidence of a communication that goes beyond our Earth. No one knows for certain what will happen when the signal touches the Martian atmosphere. No one can predict if there will be a response, a reaction, an activation of something that has been dormant for eons. Scientists have their models, their equations, their predictions, but the universe has a habit of surprising us, of showing us that, no matter how much we study, no matter how much we learn, there will always be something more. There will always be a deeper mystery waiting to be discovered. And if 3I Atlas is really communicating, if it's really sending directed messages through the solar system, using planets as transmission nodes, then the answer will no longer be an abstract mystery. It will be a concrete message. It will be information. It will be the first indirect but verifiable contact with an intelligence that is not human, with something that came from the stars, with something that is observing us, studying us, perhaps trying to communicate in a way we're only beginning to understand. The clock is ticking. Hours, days remain until that moment arrives. And when it arrives, the whole world will be watching. The telescopes will be aligned. Scientists will be monitoring every frequency, every pulse, every anomaly. The servers of space agencies will be processing terabytes of data in real time. And we, here on Earth, will be waiting for a response, waiting for confirmation, waiting to discover if what we've been seeing during these weeks is the beginning of something much bigger. Because maybe, just maybe, 3I Atlas isn't just an object passing by. Maybe it's a messenger. Maybe it's a test. Maybe it's the first chapter of a story that's just beginning. A story that will forever change our understanding of the universe, our place in it, and the infinite possibilities that exist beyond the borders of our small solar system. And if that's true, then November 5th won't be just a date on the calendar. It will be the day we stop being alone. The day the silence of the cosmos was broken. The day we received confirmation that someone else is out there, looking toward us, sending signals, waiting for someone, somewhere, to be listening. Perhaps in the coming days we'll have the answers we've been looking for. Or perhaps 3I Atlas only came to remind us that there's still much, so much we don't know. That the universe is vast, ancient, and full of secrets we're only beginning to unravel. If you want to stay up to date with every new piece of data about this object, every update, every analysis that emerges after November 5th, subscribe to the channel. And above all, leave me a comment telling me which theory seems most believable to you. Do you believe the signal will reach Mars and nothing will happen? Or do you believe we're about to witness the most transcendental event in human history? A simple scientific coincidence, or the first indirect contact with another intelligence? The answer is about to be revealed, and you're going to be here with me when it happens.